A samurai's last duty. The air in Lord Akari's chamber hung thick with the scent of incense and decay. Kenji knelt, the tatama cold beneath his knees, his gaze fixed on the frail figure propped up by silk cushions. Akari's face, once a mask of formidable power, was now gaunt, his skin translucent. Each breath rattled in his chest, a grim metronome counting down the final moments. Kenji, Akari rasped, his voice a mere whisper. My most loyal servant. Kenji lowered his head further. Lord Akari honors me with his words. Words are all I have left, Akari chuckled, a dry, brittle sound. My strength wanes and with it the security of my clan. There is a task, Kenji. One only you can fulfill. He gestured weakly towards a lacquered box resting on a nearby table. Protect her. Protect Hana. Kenji's brow furrowed imperceptibly. Princess Hana? Known more for her rebellious spirit and penchant for escaping the castle than any strategic importance. Protect her from what, my lord? From everything, Akari wheezed. There are those who would see her silenced. She must reach the Temple of Whispering Winds. There she will be safe. He closed his eyes, his grip tightening on the silken covers. Swear to me, Kenji. Swear on your honor as a samurai. I swear, Kenji said, his voice resonating with unwavering resolve. Akari exhaled, a faint smile gracing his lips. Go now. She awaits you. Kenji rose, retrieved the lacquered box containing travel documents and a small fortune in coin, he presumed, and bowed deeply before departing. The scent of death clung to him as he walked through the corridors, the weight of his lord's final command pressing heavily on his shoulders. The Temple of Whispering Winds was remote, nestled high in the mountains. A haven, Akari had said. But Kenji knew in his heart that a journey to safety was rarely without peril. He would not fail. The Hidden Princess. The temple bell echoed through the cedar grove as Kenji approached, its somber tone a stark contrast to the vibrant green surrounding it. He adjusted the katana at his hip, its familiar way to comfort in this unfamiliar place. The air hung thick with the scent of incense and damp earth, a far cry from the smoke and steel of the battlefield he'd left behind. A young woman stood at the entrance, her silk kimono the color of cherry blossoms in full bloom. This had to be Princess Hana. Her dark hair was adorned with delicate jade ornaments, and her eyes, wide and curious, held a spark that surprised him. You are Kenji Tanaka? Her voice was soft, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. He bowed, his movements precise. I am here to serve and protect you, Princess. Hana tilted her head, a playful gesture that seemed out of place for royalty. Protect me from what? The monks? The squirrels? She gestured around the serene courtyard with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Kenji remained stoic, his gaze unwavering. From any threat, Princess? My duty is to ensure your safety. Later, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the temple grounds, he found her by a window, her gaze fixed on the distant mountains. The vibrant colors of her kimono seemed muted in the fading light. What lies beyond those mountains, Kenji Tanaka? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tell me of the world outside this gilded cage. Duty and discomfort. Kenji watched from the shadows of the veranda as Hana tended the small garden outside her quarters. The morning sun painted the dew-kissed petals in hues of rose and gold. He was supposed to be guarding her but found himself simply observing. Her movements were fluid, graceful, a stark contrast to the rigid discipline he imposed upon himself. He noticed the way she hummed. A light, airy melody that seemed to chase away the temple's solemn silence. It irritated him. Later, during the midday meal, the silence between them was a thick, uncomfortable shroud. The chrysanthemums are flourishing, Hana offered, her voice soft. Kenji grunted in acknowledgement, his gaze fixed on his rice bowl. They require constant vigilance, like all things of value. Hana tilted her head, a thoughtful frown creasing her brow. Vigilance or gentle care? Sometimes I think things bloom best when left to their own devices. He clenched his chopsticks, the wood digging into his palm. Her words felt like a deliberate provocation, a subtle jab at his rigid adherence to duty. Freedom without structure is chaos, he retorted, his voice harsher than intended. She didn't flinch, but her eyes, those wide, inquisitive eyes, held a flash of something he couldn't quite decipher. Pity? Amusement? It unsettled him more than any enemy blade ever had. Kenji finished his meal in silence, the taste of rice turning to ash in his mouth. He was a warrior, a protector, yet he felt utterly incapable of guarding against the disquiet Hana stirred within him. Her spirit was a wild thing, and he, the dutiful gardener, was ill-equipped to prune it. Whispers of treachery. The scent of pine and damp earth usually soothed Kenji, but today it did little to calm the knot tightening in his stomach. He'd been inspecting the newly reinforced palisade when he overheard the hushed whispers. Two monks, normally pillars of serenity, spoke with frantic eyes about the Ishikawa clan. Rumors, they said, of poisoned wells and stolen maps, whispers of treachery carried on the wind from the valley below. Kenji said nothing, offering only a curt nod before striding away. He couldn't afford to dismiss it. The Ishikawa had always coveted the Tanaka's strategic position, the mountain pass, a gateway to vital trade routes. He doubled the patrols, his footsteps echoing through the tranquil temple grounds, now charged with a silent anxiety. Each rustle of leaves, each bird call, felt like a potential omen. Later, as Hana arranged flowers in the main hall, her brow furrowed. "You seem different, Kenji-san," she observed, her voice soft. "The air feels heavy." She paused, inhaling deeply. Like a storm is coming. He hadn't meant to burden her, but her perceptive nature was unnerving. "There are concerns," he admitted, his gaze fixed on the intricate patterns of the tatami mats. "Rumors." He didn't elaborate, unwilling to frighten her with unsubstantiated fears. But he knew with a chilling certainty that the whispers wouldn't remain whispers for long. The strength within. The training began at dawn. Kenji, ever the pragmatist, chose a secluded corner of the temple grounds, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. He demonstrated a basic block, his movements precise, economical. Like deflecting a falling leaf, he instructed, his voice a low rumble. Hana, perched on the balls of her feet, mimicked him, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her first attempts were clumsy, her movements hesitant. Kenji corrected her grip, his hand brushing hers briefly. A spark, unexpected and unwelcome, flickered between them. He quickly withdrew, focusing on the task. "Again," he commanded, his tone clipped. But Hana was a quick study. By midday, she was executing the block with surprising force, the small muscles in her arms straining. Kenji watched, a flicker of something akin to pride in his eyes. He introduced a simple strike, a palm heel to the sternum. Hana hesitated. "What if I hurt someone?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Sometimes, Hana-san," Kenji replied, his gaze unwavering, "the only way to protect is to be strong enough to defend." Their training continued late into the afternoon. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, their movements became more fluid, more instinctual. They sparred gently, Hana's laughter echoing through the quiet temple grounds. A genuine smile touched Kenji's lips. For the first time since accepting this mission, he felt a lightness in his chest, a sense of hope blooming amidst the shadows. This girl, this unlikely ward, possessed a strength within that even she didn't yet fully understand. And he, Kenji Tanaka, would help her unleash it. A taste of freedom. The temple felt smaller than usual tonight. Hana sat by the open window, the scent of pine and damp earth doing little to soothe her restlessness. "The moon is a traveler, isn't it?" she mused aloud to the empty room. "It sees the world, dances with the clouds. I wish I could be a moonbeam for just one night." Kenji's words echoed in her mind, a stern warning against leaving the temple grounds. But the distant thrum of drums, a rhythmic pulse against the quiet night, was a siren's call. It spoke of laughter, of vibrant colors, of a life she only dreamed of. The village festival. A knot tightened in Hana's stomach. Disobedience was a heavy cloak, but curiosity was a fire in her heart. She gathered her courage, slipped on her sandals, and with a last glance back at the silent temple, she vanished into the shadows. The festival was a kaleidoscope of sensations. Lanterns cast a warm glow on smiling faces. The air hummed with music, the sizzle of street food, and the chatter of vendors hawking their wares. Hana wandered through the crowd, eyes wide, taking it all in. A juggler tossed fiery torches, a storyteller captivated a small audience with animated gestures, and the aroma of candied plums filled the air, making her mouth water. It was a taste of freedom, sweet and intoxicating. But a flicker of unease danced at the edge of her joy. Kenji would be furious. And perhaps he was right to be worried. Ambush in the village. Dust devils danced in the deserted village square as Hana haggled with the silk merchant. Kenji stood back, his hand never straying far from the katana beneath his kimono. The air, thick with the scent of drying reeds and wood smoke, suddenly vibrated with a different tension. A glint of steel flashed from the shadows of the abandoned tea house. "Hana!" Kenji barked, shoving her behind a crumbling stone well. 5 figures, masked and wielding curved blades, erupted from their hiding places. The lead attacker, his voice raspy, spat, "The temple whore. We'll carve the serenity out of her face." Kenji's katana sang as he drew it. "You will not touch her." His voice, usually a low rumble, now possessed an icy edge. He moved with a speed Hana had never witnessed, a blur of steel deflecting the first strike. The attackers, clearly expecting an easy target, faltered at his skill. One lunged, but Kenji sidestepped, the katana a silver flash, leaving a crimson line across the attacker's arm. "Run, Hana! Back to the temple!" Kenji yelled, parrying another blow. Fear warred with defiance in Hana's eyes. She grabbed a discarded wooden cart, shoving it towards the remaining attackers, momentarily disrupting their formation. Then she turned and fled, the image of Kenji's determined face seared into her mind. The clash of steel followed her as she scrambled up the overgrown path toward the relative safety of the temple walls. Confessions and wounds. The acrid smell of burnt wood stung Hana's nostrils. She gasped, clutching her arm. A shard of debris, hot as a forge, had sliced through her sleeve. Kenji, his face grim, knelt beside her, his katana lying discarded a few feet away. "Let me see," he said, his voice unusually gentle. He carefully peeled back the torn fabric, revealing a crimson gash. Hana winced. He retrieved a water skin and a strip of clean cloth from his pack. The water, cool against her skin, eased the burning. As he dabbed at the wound, his brow furrowed in concentration, his large hands surprisingly delicate. "This will scar," he murmured, tying the bandage tightly. Hana watched him, her heart pounding a rhythm separate from the lingering fear of the attack. "Thank you, Kenji." He met her gaze, his dark eyes intense. "Hana," he began, his voice rough, I was a fool. I judged you unfairly. I thought you were a distraction, a burden. But you are." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "You are brave. Kind. More than I deserve." He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. I care for you, Hana. More than duty allows." Tears welled in Hana's eyes. She reached up, covering his hand with hers. "And you, Kenji. Your strength, your loyalty, it makes me feel safe." He pulled her closer, his embrace hesitant at first, then firm. The scent of smoke and steel clung to him, a comforting reminder of his protection. In that moment, amidst the wreckage, a new bond solidified, forged in fire and confession. The temple under siege. The war drums throbbed, not a distant rumble this time, but a visceral pounding that vibrated through the temple stones. Hana stumbled, nearly dropping the oil lamp she carried. Kenji's hand steadied her. "They're here." His voice was grim, all softness gone, replaced by the honed steel of the warrior. Torches blazed on the temple steps, casting long, dancing shadows as the rival clan, the Serpent's Fang, swarmed upwards. Their leader, a hulking brute named Gorin, roared a challenge, his katana glinting in the firelight. "Kenji, the hidden passage!" Hana shouted, remembering the forgotten tunnel her grandfather, the former temple caretaker, had once shown her. "It leads to the western courtyard, behind their lines." Kenji hesitated, torn between defending the main gate and trusting Hana's knowledge. But Gorin's men were already scaling the walls. He nodded sharply. "Lead the way." The passage was claustrophobic, the air thick with dust. Hana's lamp cast a feeble glow, barely illuminating the rough-hewn stone. They emerged into the courtyard as Gorin's forces breached the inner sanctum. Kenji charged, a whirlwind of steel. He cut through the surprised ranks, each strike precise and deadly. Gorin, seeing his men fall, bellowed and met Kenji head-on. Their blades clashed, a shower of sparks illuminating their faces, contorted with fury. Kenji, fueled by a fierce protectiveness, disarmed Gorin with a lightning-fast maneuver and held his katana to the brute's throat. "Yield," Kenji commanded, his voice like ice. Gorin, defeated, spat on the ground but nodded. The remaining Serpent's Fang warriors, seeing their leader fall, faltered and retreated. Kenji sheathed his sword. He looked at Hana, her face smudged with dirt, her eyes shining with pride. "It is over." "Not quite," Hana said, taking his hand. "There is a world outside these walls, Kenji. Let's go see it." He looked at the temple.